Hello there, this is Mike Goldenberg, also known as Saint Doom, with a replay video of Druid Karn. This is a match that just occurred with Druid Karn against Grixis Death Shadow. So this is game one. I am on the draw, and I keep a solid 7. So this hand, I don't know what my opponent is at this point, but when I kept it, I could say, okay, I go turn 1 Utopia Sprawl, turn 2 Devoted Druid Oath of Nissa dig for a Vizier. If I hit it, I have the turn 3 kill with Karn. I have my turn 1 draw, my turn 2 draw, my turn 3 draw, and Oath of Nissa, which is 6 total cards deep to try to hit Vizier. So I'm feeling pretty confident with the turn 3 kill here. I also have interaction with the Fairy. See my opponent shocks, then cycles a Street Wraith and passes. I draw an Arbor Elf, so I say, you know what, if my opponent has a removal spell, I'd rather go to the Arbor Elf than to my Druid, so I play Arbor Elf and pass. They have Dismember and drop a Shadow. I take a unique line and play Hall of the Bandit Lord Utopia Sprawl. So basically I'm banking that my opponent doesn't have more removal has more removal spells, doesn't have hand disruption, and I'm basically telling my opponent you can't tap out here because next turn I'm going to I can cast a Druid and just, again, banking on drawing a Vizier, win the game. My opponent has a hand disruption spell and just takes the Druid and starts pounding away at me with a 1-mana 4/4. I cast Fairy to bounce the Shadow, but they have a Stubborn Denial, and it's not looking great for me. A Shock, and then a TBR closes that game out quick. So it's game one. Spoilers, there's 3 games here. Sideboard, I actually sided out the entire Vizier combo, all of those cards, and I brought in removal spells. I also sided out 4 Viziers, and I sided out, I believe, 3 Finales, and I brought in all my extra creatures in the size, Scooge, Tracker, and Knight of Autumn, and I brought in my 5 removal spells. So I look at this hand and I say, okay, so it goes turn 1 Arbor Elf, and this hand, since again I'm not trying to win with the Druid here, this hand lets me go Karn and try to win with Karn. Not a great hand, it's a little sketchy, but I end up landing the turn 1 Arbor Elf, and I say I'm on the play, maybe this will get me there. Opponent cycles a ton of Street Wraiths and tops 2 with the Serum Visions. I play Utopia Sprawl and drop a Karn when my opponent's shields are down. Turn 2 Karn is a dangerous thing. I think about it for a few minutes and I decide to grab a Wormcoil Engine here because if my opponent doesn't kill this Arbor Elf, then I just get to drop the Wormcoil next turn. And at this point I grab an Engineered Explosives to kill this Death Shadow, but unfortunately that also knocks my own mana down because that will kill my Utopia Sprawl. That is why I don't play the Oath of Nissa there. Opponent thought seizes and takes the Finale, which I think is very, very relevant there. I think they took the Finale so I couldn't ramp, as it was one of the easiest things for me to cast. I blow up the EE and kill the Shadow to protect the Karn, which was a questionable play. I felt like that I needed the Karn in play to keep drawing me cards. I arguably should have let the Karn die and then blown up the EE after. I Eternal Witness buyback the EE and it's met with a Stubborn Denial. My opponent's definitely turned the corner at this point with an 8/8, and they swing in and kill Karn. My opponent had to kill Karn there because he was threatening to potentially grab another Engineered Explosives if I had one on the board. I don't, but my opponent didn't know that, and they're hellbent. They just basically have to win with Death Shadow, and they didn't want me to draw, like, say, a Walking Ballista to ruin the game for them. So I play an Oath of Nissa. I'm just trying to dig for lands. I don't get a land, but I had a Druid, which is fine. So I play the Druid, and I play the Canopy and pass. Next turn I play a Wormcoil. So here my opponent just swings. If they have TBR, I'm dead anyway, so I just take it. And they hold that card in hand, whatever it is. I cast Wormcoil and pass. My opponent Fetch Shocks, goes down to 2 and hard casts a Street Wraith. They now have 2 bodies in play. I have a Teferi in hand, so I get to bounce one of them and feeling pretty good, and I draw another Teferi. Because of Oath of Nissa, I can cast Teferi for any mana. I cast Teferi, bounce, have 3 more mana, cast another Teferi, bounce. I could have cast Winds of Abandon. Either way, my opponent's hellbent. And I steal the game by swinging in with Wormcoil. Game 3. So, let's close that out and start over. Game 3. Alright. I mull again. And then I bottom 2. So this is, I'm down to 5 here. Not a great 5 either. And the plan is to turn 1 Oath of Nissa and to find me something, and then Scooze is my threat. Opponent didn't do much with the Serum Visions. It was top, bottom. Cycled the Street Wraith. They're just progressing their board. They Thoughtseize away the Teferi. Teferi is my bounce spell, so that is huge. Because I have both of Nissa in play, can just fetch a bunch of basics to preserve my life total. I drop a Scavenging Ooze, and my opponent has a Thoughtseize. If they have another one, it's weak there. If they have a push, they can kill it now. Either way, I make them spend their mana. And here, I think, is coming up on a pretty critical turn. I decide to Eternal Witness and buy back Teferi. And just pass the turn. When my opponent attacks with this Gurmag Angler, I decide not to block and just go down to 12. I think it's the right play. Opponent bottoms, I believe, twice off the Serum Visions. Now here, I decide to cast a Fairy and bounce the Gurmag Angler. That's my line. I'm assuming it's going to get Stubborn Nihiled, but I luckily don't. And I decide to swing for 4, put my opponent on a short clock. Now, here's a critical part that I had to think about here. So, I swing for 4, right? Damage happens. My opponent goes to 5. If we look at my opponent's current situation, they have plenty of cards in hand. I just have to assume they have another land in hand, right? They have 5 cards in hand and then they have a Fatal Push or Dismember. So I know one's a Gurmag Angler. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay? So if they have another land, they'll play that land. Now they have 7 mana, they can recast Gurmag Angler and kind of take over this game again, unless I draw a removal spell. So I'm assuming they have that land. They already have their 2 basic lands in play. The key line here is I could have cast Utopia Sprawl to progress my mana again for next turn, so then I can get Karn and maybe play a fast Wormcoil, so I can eat a lot with Scooze, so I can Oath of Nissa, so I can do lots of different things. I decided to eat the Serum Visions, which all that does is make them have to pay 1 more for Delve, which means that if my opponent has a fetch land instead of a shock land, if they try fetch shocking into Gurmag Angler, they'll be down to 2 life, and I'll have 2 attackers, and they'll only have 1 blocker. So I'm basically, by eating the Serum Visions, I'm forcing my opponent, if they have a fetch land, to not, I'm making it so they can't recast that Gurmag Angler. Opponent plays the fetch, shocks, and then realizes their mistake at 2 life against two bodies, and I steal on a mull to 5 a game against Grixis Death Shadow. So I just wanted to kind of showcase that game, how having main board Scavenging Ooze and how this deck can win even without the Druid combo, because again, I sided that out for both games I won without having any Viziers in the deck. I think it's an important integral part in how this deck can attack, using Teferi as a Time Walk effect with that unsummoned draw. So that's the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you on the next one.